Okay. Okay, so we just finished the short lecture introduction to the concepts and principles of dynamic neuromuscular stabilization. What we'd like to do now is give you a little flow sequence with specific positions and transitions so that you can help facilitate the integrated stabilizing system of the spine and coordinate the respiratory and postural function of the diaphragm. Both these things you will ideally utilize with your practice and with your grappling art. First thing I want to touch on before we go through this sequence is we are going to, review the respiratory pattern of the diaphragm. If everybody takes their hands, comes just at the ilium here, that hip bone, come up just above that, but below the ribs. Sandwich your trunk, your fingers are in the front, your thumbs will be in the back. What I'm going to have you do is breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. Try to get a 5 to 6 count in and a 5 to 6 count out. So let's breathe in. And then out. Keep breathing, 5 seconds in, 5 to 6 seconds out. As you're breathing, you want to feel the hands expand. The diaphragm, we want it to be descending down towards the mat and expanding the hands at the same time. After we do that 2 to 3 times, the next position, we take our hands and we put our fingers in the lower ribs, the lower intercostal spaces. Take the other hand, so we kind of give ourselves a hug. Same thing here, 5 to 6 seconds in, 5 to 6 seconds out, in and out through the nose. As I breathe in and out, I want to feel my fingers expanding. And what I don't want to feel is my thoracic cage moving up towards the head. You want the diaphragm descending and have that nice expansion through the lower intercostal spaces. This expansion should be all the way around, 360 degrees. The third position, if we take our hands just below the armpit, again in those rib spaces, those intercostal spaces, each side, let the shoulders relax. I'm going to breathe again. My thumbs are on my pecs, pec minor here. Breathe in, 5 to 6 seconds. Out, 5 to 6 seconds. Let's do that 2 to 3 times. Again, we want to feel the expansion of the ribs. And with each breath, we're going to have that expansion through the belt line here, the lower ribs, and then the upper rib region. That will promote the descending of the diaphragm, the expansion of the lungs, and the ideal expansion of the thoracic cage. I want you to be thinking about this as we go through each one of these positions and each one of these transitions. Okay? Now, from here, with the breathing, if we activate or facilitate the stabilizing function of the diaphragm, if I put my hands here, push into my trunk, activate my abdominal wall, you can see my hands spread apart. I'm not breathing, I'm just activating the abdominal wall. So you'll feel as well that expansion. So that diaphragm has respiratory function, the descending, the expansion of the lungs, but it also has a stabilizing function, facilitating or creating that intra-abdominal pressure, loading pelvic floor, loading the abdominal wall. The trick is, can I maintain that activation, but also breathe in and out, keeping some activation, some tone throughout the abdominal wall. If I can do that, in this situation here, just breathing, I can then translate that into the movements that we're going to go through, and then that will help us integrate that coordination, that synergy coordination and timing of that integrated stabilizing system, as well as the coordination of the respiratory and postural function of the diaphragm. If we can do that through these movements, then we're going to be more able to do that when we're going through the jiu-jitsu specific fundamental movements, and then with rolling as well. So, next position, we're going to go to hands and knees. So, quadruped position, I'm going to have Jess face that way. So here, she's pushing the ground away, help facilitate stabilization through the shoulder girdle. She's going to activate the abdominal wall, keep that activation, keep breathing with activation, with stabilization. The knees are a little wider than hips width apart, maybe shoulder width apart. And now I want her to just rock back, and she's going to rock back in a range that she can maintain this activation, maintain the uprighting, maintain contact on the mat. So she's pushing the mat away, shoulder girdle stability, trunk stability. That intra-abdominal pressure is going to facilitate lengthening or uprighting throughout the spine. And now she's isolating movements through the hips. This is a really nice motion to help facilitate the hip hinge, which is going to come in handy later on. And we also facilitate that deep stabilizing system, integrated stabilizing system of the spine. So with this, I'm going to have her do about 5 reps here, but you can do as many that you like, that feels good for you, with the time that you have as far as prepping for grappling, for rolling. So after we go through this quadruped rock, which I call it, nice activation, nice uprighting throughout the spine, nice contact of the hands. Now we are going to progress to a bear position. So here she's going to curl the feet under, again pushing the mat away, and now she's going to lift the hips up just above the shoulder girdle. Nice contact of the ball of the foot on the mat. The femur is going to be slightly abducted and externally rotated, so the knees aren't collapsing in. Here she's breathing, she's maintaining the stabilizing function. Now we have a connection from the hands all the way to the feet. So we're working that whole kinetic chain. The trunk and pelvis and the shoulder girdle are the link between these 2 points of support. Now, keeping that activation, I want her to slowly lower the knees, barely touch the mat, and come back up. This is going to really challenge your ability to maintain that shoulder girdle stability. It's going to really challenge the stability through the trunk and the pelvis. We maintain this contact throughout the ball of the foot, so we're going to get nice mobilization of the first leg, the big toe. And we're going to get nice activation, mobilization of the intrinsics throughout the foot, and movement through the knee, the ankle, and the shoulder. Now we're going to have her come down, take a little break. She's making it look easy. These are actually quite challenging. Once she's ready, she's going to come up again, maintaining that activation, maintaining the breath. Now what I want her to do is she's going to reach with the right hand up towards the ceiling. As she reaches, see how she compensated a bit. She kind of got away from this center position. I want her to keep this level of the hips, keep this position of the knees. Huge activity through the trunk and the pelvis. This helps isolate the mobility through the thoracic spine. She pushes the ground away. She's going to pivot, go back down. So here she's pushing away. Now she's going to reach with the left hand. Feel like you're pivoting here, stabilizing here. Get nice mobility through the thoracic spine, and she's maintaining the position through the trunk and the pelvis, and maintaining the position of the legs and the feet on the mat. Okay, go ahead and come down, take a little break there. And when she's ready, she's going to come up again. And now we are going to kick the left leg through. So she's going to kick through. This really challenges support on that left shoulder girdle, trunk and pelvis, and the contact support on the foot on the mat. Come back up into bear position. Kick through with the right. She's pushing the mat away. She should be pivoting around this shoulder. Nice shoulder girdle stability, trunk stability. Kick through. Good. A few more, side to side. So the focus here is maintaining that stability, that activity, but also being able to breathe. And we're combining now mobility with stability, paying attention to the contact points on the mat with both the foot and the hand. Nice. Okay, from here now, go ahead and down, take a break. And when you're ready, she's going to come back up again. Now the last one in this position, again, nice stability, breathing. Now she's going to walk it back and walk back into a squat position. She's maintaining the stabilization. She can come up from this position. She can maybe work on hand position, a defensive position. Squat down, and then from the squat, she's hinging through the knees back into the bear position. She can walk the hands out a little bit. Now walk back. Nice stability. Nice squat, nice uprighting throughout the spine, nice support with the whole foot. And then she comes up, lengthening through the hamstrings and walking out. When she makes that transition from squat back to bear position, so squat and then hands down, really lengthen through the hamstrings. It's a nice active, eccentric stretch of the hamstrings, really nice contact of the foot on the ground. And it's, again, a nice combination of mobility with stability. Good. Okay, walk out and then go ahead and come down to quadruped. Next position here, we're going to get into, it's called a modified oblique sit. So bottom knee will be 90 or below. Elbow is going to come down on the ground, and then the other elbow will line up with the left one in this case. And so here, so let this come down just a bit. This knee usually will line up right where the Achilles and the heel is. Let that top leg extend slightly. Here, forearms are going to push away from the ground. She stabilizes through the shoulder girdle. Here, active, trunk, pelvis, deep stabilization, nice uprighting throughout the spine. I really like this because we have already mobility through the thoracic area, stability in the shoulder girdle, and we've wound up the hip. It's a nice deep stretch of those deep external rotators. From here, she can breathe, thinking of the expansion throughout the whole thoracic cage, having the diaphragm descend towards the pelvic floor. Then she's going to load the lateral condyle of the knee and slowly lift the downside hip, just an inch or two. Once the hip leaves the ground, you have a connection from the knee all the way to the left forearm and elbow. So you're activating that whole oblique chain with stability. So here we have mobility through the hip, mobility through the thoracic spine, stability in the shoulder girdle, stability through the trunk and the pelvis. Nice. From this position, let's go ahead and transition to the other side. So, same setup, 90 degrees here, knee is at the Achilles and the heel. Go ahead and extend your top leg a little bit. The other top leg. So this goes down, and then come down here. There you go. Okay, she's pushing away from here, nice stability. You see how she just lifts an inch or two off the ground. So we have stability, she's breathing, active, integrated stabilizing system throughout the spine. Really nice combination of mobility and stability through the thoracic area and through the hips. One more, come up. She could hold this, she could breathe. If you want to make this more difficult, she could lift that top leg. And now she has added load to facilitate even more stabilizing function. Nice. Come on down. Good. Okay. So now, from this position, we are going to go to a tripod position. So, tripod, you go from, this is called a half kneeling position, both hands down, split from the side. Knee is over the ankle, support on the whole foot, uprighting, lengthening throughout the spine, activation of the abdominal wall, and then we're going to reach up and pushing away from the ground, keeping stability through the shoulder girdle. My other hand reaches up towards the ceiling. So I'm going to keep that position, keep that activation. Now from here, she's going to keep reaching and come up, and she spirals up into that half kneeling position and then back down into the tripod. So huge stability through the trunk and the pelvis, and rotation again through the thoracic spine, stability through the shoulder girdle, and we have to move through the hips as we come up and then as we spiral back down. Good. A few more. Good. And then go all the way down. Bring the other hand down here. And now let's change the leg position from there. One leg back, the other leg forward. So the left foot forward. This back knee is underneath the hip. And slight external rotation of the femur. So the heel will line up with the ischial tuberosity on this side. Nice stability here, nice uprighting throughout the spine. She's pushing away here. She's pivoting around this shoulder. Nice shoulder girdle stability, trunk stability, reaching, and then spiraling up to half kneeling, spiral back down to tripod. So you can go at a pace that you can maintain the stability, feel the uprighting, and have the coordination of respiratory and postural function of the diaphragm. And then make sure you're maintaining support on that foot, on the left foot in this case. A few more. Back down, nice. And then go ahead and come out of that. The last part here is going to be a little specific focus on the hip, and a nice combination again, mobility, stability. From this position, this is it's an oblique sit position, so we're upright through the spine, and what I'm going to do here is no hands. I can pretend like I'm holding a ball or I'm handing somebody something. I'm keeping the stability through the trunk and the pelvis. My center of mass is going to go through the femur. As I transfer my center of mass through the femur, I feel like I'm rolling along the lateral side of the femur until I reach the lateral condyle of the knee. Once I'm there, once I have this nice hip hinge, then I'm going to load, come up, and step with that other leg. So step forward here. Then I'm going to go back. I'm going to reverse it. So from here, I'm going to sit back. So a nice hip hinge, in this case, in my left hip. Nice stability, nice uprighting. And then I'm going to step back with the leg. And then as I sit back, I'm rolling back along my femur to the hip. So we come up again, length through the spine, nice activation. Coming up, sitting back. We're just reversing that motion and coming back to here. So if I want to go to the right, come around, reverse positions. Here, again, my center of mass is going through the femur. Once I start loading that lateral condyle, I have the uprighting throughout the spine, deep stabilization. Load, step, sit back, leg comes back, and sitting back to the hip. Ideally, it's going to be smooth and controlled like that. This is something that the better awareness that you have, the better ability to maintain stability and keep the coordination of respiratory and postural function of the diaphragm, the smoother it will become. It's a really nice prep and nice combination of mobility and stability for the trunk and pelvic area, which is going to be so valuable, especially when we get to the next part of the sequence. So this is a prep for now the Jiu-Jitsu fundamental movements that we'll do in this next video with Jess leading. Thanks.
Alrighty, so we've seen lots of awesome presentations from our other presenters. Today we are going to integrate some of the ideals of the dynamic neuromuscular stabilization developmental sequence into some of our Jiu-Jitsu specific movements. We are going to make sure that what we're doing is building a really strong foundation within our body and within our practice so that we can create a more conceptual-based practice as well as promote longevity for our grapplers. So what we're going to do first is just an easy warm-up, if you will, of just the fundamental movements of Jiu-Jitsu. We have our teeter-totter, where we come up and down, creating a nice strong hip angle and a good strong trunk. We're going to use our upa, where we build, again, a nice strong line so we're structurally sound as opposed to relying on muscle or blast movements. We have our shrimp. And we have our 4 points base. All of these movements are proliferated through Jiu-Jitsu, so as I teach classes, I like to make sure that we do all of these movements to get our minds ready for Jiu-Jitsu and to remind ourselves that a good foundational practice creates longevity and efficacy. So let's do a little flow. So I like to always start with a teeter-totter. From here, we can rock back and tuck a foot and come up. Stretch out the hips a little bit if we would like. And back to our teeter-totter. And then we'll rock back and place our feet down on the floor and a few upas straight up in the air at first. Feeling the anchors within our feet and our shoulders. Now we're going to tuck a hand, reach over our opposite shoulder and back down. Always breathing and controlled movement. Now we can reach up. We're going to open up. I'll go this side, reach up, open up this inside knee, and we're going to keep the nice strong connection with that foot. And I'm going to begin to turn over. I can reverse. I can come down and back. And to our teeter-totter again. And now our feet can come down. We lift our butt up, we roll over onto our side. Our butt is still up off of the floor and we press our butt away. And now we're going to use that core strength to bring ourselves all the way back to our heels. Lift up, press away, come all the way back. If we want to challenge ourselves, we can keep our butt up off of the floor the entire time. We can also do one-legged shrimps to work on control. And now we lift up, we roll over onto our side. We do a little tiny shrimp. Top leg takes all of the weight. Bottom leg is gonna thread all the way through. And we find ourselves in like a Spider-Man type of position, right? Our toes are tucked, nice and strong, so that if we need to move, we can. And we're going to just push the reverse button. Again, pressing in to the one foot so that we can step through. Little shrimp, step through. Good, strong connection to our floor. And then coming on back. From here, we can step through, do a little 4 points base, with a technical stand up. And that is a nice flow. We can just kind of free flow with those core movements, get their body moving, and always thinking about making sure that we are moving deliberately, as well as creating ourselves into a good structural formation, as opposed to trying really hard to use those muscles that might burn us out a little bit easier. Next, what we're going to do, I'm going to put on my gi, I'm going to grab a partner, and we will do some specific guard drills that I like to use to help retain and move around within my guard. And then we're going to apply them to not only our developmental sequence with Dr. Mike, but also we are going to apply them to some jiu-jitsu specific techniques to show how we would use them in a free roll. Okay, so now we've warmed up. Now what we're going to do is delve a little bit more jiu-jitsu specific, where I'm going to show some of my favorite guard drills that I use in my classes, and I use for myself for my practice. This requires a partner, as guard normally does. So I have my husband John here. So we'll show some of these drills. Mike will come in and show how we can apply those tenets of the developmental sequence to help build that good, strong body to make our practice even more effective. Then what we're going to do is I will show some more specific techniques of how to apply these drills and make them a little bit more practical for our grappler. So, within my guard, I have John. When I'm maintaining my guard, I want to make sure that what I'm doing is always keeping a really good connection with my partner and also being mobile. I need to stay mobile while I maintain my guard, because if I just sit here, this is not going to be very difficult for him to break open my legs and pass. So the first little drill that we're going to do, John is going to hold onto my belt so I don't fly away. I can hold onto his sleeves with just a nice little pocket grip. And what we're going to do now is start to apply not only a good body position, but to use our momentum to help us move, as opposed to trying to move ourselves from side to side. So I'm here, I'm going to open up my legs really, really wide, and I'm going to use this outside leg, and I'm going to, I want to kick him right in the kidney, but I'm not going to. Right out here, and then using that momentum will take me all the way over to the other side. Open up my legs, and kick, and kick, and kick, and kick, kick.
So, a couple things that you can think about also in this position is that activation of the abdominal wall, maintaining the coordination of respiratory and postural function of the diaphragm. So not only are you working the technique and the movement, the drill, but think about that activation of the integrated stabilizing system of the spine that will create that uprighting, unloading, and allow for centration, differentiation of the limbs and the joints.
Right, so as opposed to just being floppy, I'm going to be nice and strong and open. Side to side. what this does is it helps us to move from one side of the body to the next in a very efficient way. It also teaches us to let our body do what it naturally wants to do. Sometimes we get to be control freaks and we want to stop ourselves because we need to be able to do it ourselves, as opposed to letting our body move naturally. So that's one of my drills. It's very, very fun. It's like I said, it's a good way to let your body use the momentum and move from one side of the body to the next. The next one that we're going to do is when we're going to start on this side. So this is when we get our partners, both hands to one side. This is where we're at here. Now, instead of trying to pull myself up because I want to control this arm, instead of pulling myself up in a very ungraceful way, I'm going to use that momentum again with this outside leg, and I'm going to show it on the other side as well. And again, I'm going to kick myself up and come up into a nice strong posture here. And I can hold on to my partner, and I am covering up his arm and going to start to attack or take the back. All right, other side so you can see me a little bit better.
So again,
so I'm here.
All of these, being able to utilize the momentum, having nice activity through the trunk and the pelvis, integrated stabilization, will allow more efficient transfer of force and load. So it helps Jess get into position more efficiently and more effectively.
And what this does is not only am I coming up, but I'm at, like I said, I want to make a good connection with my partner. So I'm going to come, I'm going to attach my hip to his, my chest to his shoulder. I'm good and strong, and I'm still mobile. Here. Now, if John wanted to move around, I'm stuck to him, and it'll be harder for him to shake me up. Next little drill that I want to do is I'm going to come here, and I'm going to bring my feet to his hips. And again, I'm going to not get a good active torso. My hips are up off of the floor, and I'm going to use that shrimp to come out to one side so that I can get my leg to wrap all the way around and tuck behind his armpit. Now I'm going to come back. Hopefully we can see that reverse shrimp, and I've set up a nice lasso guard. Now I'm going to come back, unwind, and reset. Shrimp, come through. I'll place my other foot onto his hip and then come back. You notice I'm changing his posture as I go. And then, very methodically, I'm going to wind and unwind.
So again, this whole time, she's working technique, she's working the movement and the drill, but also you see that stability and coordination of that deep stabilizing system, providing the fixed point for the larger muscle groups in order to make this movement more efficient. Now, John can also be thinking about that activation, that deep stabilization. So he can be working on that coordination, that synergy, that timing of the integrated stabilizing system at the same time.
What I'm doing is I'm positioning myself in a very, very good way so that my hips will move in a much easier manner, as opposed to trying to stay flat on my back and winding my leg through. There are some people that can do it. There's not many though. So when I shrimp, I change the angle of my legs so that I can use that to my advantage and create all kinds of space in here to put my legs. And then I can come back and I have a nice strong position here. Alrighty? These drills are not meant to be done with as much speed as possible, but with deliberate movement, with thought about how we're moving, so that as we get better, the speed comes on its own. All right, my last and favorite drill that I like to do to help my students with their guard and with my own guard is lovingly monikered the swizzer. What we're trying to do, the whole point of this is for me to use my partner in a way that I can turn my body without disconnecting from my partner. Sometimes I need to turn to my side. A lot of times I need to turn to my side. If I let go and put my feet to the floor and start to scoot, I've given him space and opportunity for him to pass. And I don't want that. So when I'm here, I'm going to use him. I'm going to use his thighs to help me to move. I'm going to lift my butt up off of the floor, good and strong in the trunk again, and I'm going to pedal my feet like I'm on a bike. So if I want to turn and look at you, I'm going to pedal this back foot, press into his thigh with my thigh to help turn my hips and flop over to one side. Then I'm going to press with the other leg and turn to my side without creating a whole lot of space, without disconnecting to his hips, which are very, very important.
In this one, this is a nice demonstration. If she has that fixed point through the trunk and the pelvis, it allows her to differentiate through or around the acetabulum, around the femoral head. So she has a fixed point with the legs, stability through the trunk and the pelvis, and nice differentiation through the hip. So again, mobility with stability in this drill, focusing on this technique for guard retention.
Some of the common misconceptions about this move is that it is a shrimp. I'm not trying to push my body away. Again, we don't want to make all of that space. So I think of it as flipping the pancake from one hip to the other hip without traveling. So pressing down onto his thigh with the back of my thigh, lifting my hips into a little upa, and then just placing my hip down. Pressing onto his thigh, using my partner so that I can place my hip down to the other side. This puts me in position for a lot of different things. I can come in for a collar, I can dive in for a sweep, we can set up for some defenses, which we will do here in a little bit. Yes, one last thing. I'm going to do a little bit more complex move for you, and this time I would like you to see if you're able to pick out some of the elements that we discussed in this presentation. So now I've got John in my guard. Lots of elements that we discussed within this presentation that you might be able to find. Reverse it if you need to, slow it down. See how my body works nice and efficiently against a bigger partner or any partner to help me to achieve what I need to do.